The first fist hit my cabin door so hard the antlers rattled on the wall, and my heart slammed right out of rhythm. And before I could even take a breath, the whole place filled with red and blue lights bouncing off the logs like fire. Boots stomping across my rug, and rifles pointed straight at my chest. And all I saw through the chaos was her, our HOA president, smug in her cream blazer, watching from the porch with that icy little smile that told me this wasn't about rules or fences anymore. This was about control, about breaking me in front of everyone. They tied my wrists so tight plastic cut the skin. One of them jammed a fake badge in my face. Another barked about HOA police authority. And I almost laughed, because I'd seen real authority in my life, and this wasn't it. This was theater. Bad theater. Until I looked down the hallway and remembered my niece hiding in the safe room. Just 13. Probably clutching that little book she carried everywhere. And suddenly, I wasn't laughing anymore. I was calculating, waiting for the right second to flip the switch that would seal this cabin like a fortress. When I finally pulled that lever and steel shutters slammed down over the windows, cutting the light, cutting their arrogance. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just up against petty HOA fines anymore. I was in a war Marjorie West had declared on me personally. But let me rewind, because this didn't start with rifles and shouting. It started with a damn letter in my mailbox 3 months earlier. I'd bought this cabin on Crystal Pine Cove because I wanted quiet. A place where the lake held sound like glass, and the only arguments came from loons echoing across the water at night. My niece loved it. She'd bike down the hill, help me feed the chickens, paint silly faces on garden gnomes. Then came the HOA notice. My wooden posts weren't the approved shade of brown. The canoe under the birch tree violated storage rules. The gnome offended their sense of uniformity. I laughed at first, thought it was a mistake, walked into their office with pictures, explanations, even offered cookies at the meeting to soften the room. But when Marjorie leaned into that microphone and smiled that thin smile, repeating her mantra, "Uniformity protects value," I knew it wasn't about gnomes or fences. It was about bending me. And I bent at first, painted the posts, hid the canoe, even moved the gnome. I told my niece sometimes peace looks like a paintbrush. And she hugged me, called me corny. I thought that would be the end. But the letters kept coming. The fines stacked. And every one of them carried the scent of perfume I knew came straight from Marjorie's desk. The day I saw the white SUV with community safety unit magnets parked at my gate, measuring my mailbox with a tape. That's when the unease crept deeper. I walked out calm, told them there's no such thing as HOA police, asked to see a contract, and one of them muttered they'd be back. And they were, at dawn, with rifles. They kicked in my door, shouting "police" like kids playing dress up, zip tying my hands, and trampling across the rug my mother wove. One raised his rifle toward the hallway, toward where Grace was hidden, and something inside me went cold. Steady. Panic is gasoline, and I wasn't about to pour it on this fire. So I played scared, edged toward that corner, and pulled the lever that locked my world down. Shutters clanged, steel sealed the hallway, and their bravado cracked. They didn't expect resistance. Through the door slits, I caught sight of Marjorie on the porch, pearls gleaming, chin lifted, as if she were queen of this little kingdom. They shoved me to my knees, pressed rifle rails into my collarbone. One whispered I wasn't special. that I'd learn what happens when you cross the HOA. And for a heartbeat, I almost believed him, because my wrists bled, my chest ached, and I could hear Grace whispering from behind the safe door, her voice thin but brave. That was the moment I questioned myself. Had I been stupid to resist? Maybe if I'd just paid the fines, taken down the gate, rolled over like the rest, maybe they wouldn't be here. I felt the weight of being the only adult Grace had left, the fear that my stubbornness had invited this nightmare into her life. For a flicker of a second, I wanted to give up, let them march me out, and hope she'd be spared. But then I remembered her eyes lighting up when she planted flowers by the steps, her laughter when we cooked chili for Mr. Walker 2 lots down. And I thought, no, you don't get to scare a child into silence. Not in my house. Not while I'm breathing. That was the pivot. That was when doubt burned off and anger took its place. The room shifted when another knock came at the front door. Not the wild pounding of the fakes, but a heavy, measured knock. They hesitated. The door opened, and in walked Commander Ryan Keller, State Police, calm as a stone in a flood. He didn't need flashing lights or crooked patches. He had the badge that actually meant something. When he introduced himself, I saw the rifles tremble in the imposter's hands. For a second, I thought it was over. But Marjorie screamed from the porch, ordering them to push harder, and suddenly hydraulic tools were grinding against my shutters, smoke alarms blaring, chaos climbing. Then things spun out of control. Real trucks with floodlights appeared, not just SUVs. And Marjorie pulled out some remote that unleashed shrieking noise across the property. She wasn't backing down, she was escalating. And right then I realized she'd traded any pretense of neighborhood order for outright war. We fought our way out through the cellar tunnel. Me, Grace, old Mr. Walker coughing his lungs out, and one young officer covering our backs. Snow bit at our ankles. Spotlights swept through the trees, and we stumbled through mud and roots until we hit the old mill clearing. I thought maybe we'd made it, until more trucks boxed us in and a broad-shouldered man stepped out demanding I hand over Grace. My blood went ice, then like salt in a wound. I saw one of the men wearing a state police jacket, a traitor, someone who'd flipped. My chest clenched so hard I thought I'd collapse, but I held Grace tighter, whispering the code phrase she knew by heart. We were outnumbered, outgunned, boxed in by floodlights, and every instinct screamed this was the end. Then Keller's voice cut through from the ridge, real officers storming in, flash, bangs lighting the snow, rifles steady. The fake cops cracked. Some dropped weapons. Others panicked. But Marjorie, oh, she wasn't finished. She tried to run, screeching from the back of an SUV, clutching her remote like a queen, clutching her crown. Keller and I chased her to Pine Gorge Bridge, where there was nowhere left to run. That bridge was steel and ice over a roaring river. And when her SUV screeched to a halt halfway across, she climbed out wild-eyed, pearls bouncing, screaming that she owned us all, that HOA power would never die. She raised the remote, threatening to bring the whole bridge down. My stomach turned because I saw the real detonators in her car. This wasn't bluff. But when she pressed the button, nothing happened. Keller told her we'd disabled her toys hours ago, for the first time. Her face faltered, eyes darting. Then she lunged with a pistol, aiming straight at me and Grace. And I didn't think. I fired. Her scream cut short, her blazer blooming red, her pearls scattering across the planks like broken teeth. She collapsed, the remote slipping from her hand into the river below. Silence fell, the kind that hums in your bones. I thought it was done, but it wasn't. From the ridge came precise shots. A sniper her board had hired. A ghost named Sutter. He pinned us down, herding us into the open, every bullet deliberate. My chest pounded. I'd seen his work in files years ago. He wasn't here to save her. He was here to bury all of us. And here's the twist I never expected. The scarred fake cop. The one who'd tied me in my cabin hours earlier. Stood beside me now, jaw clenched, saying he'd help end it. He'd seen Marjorie for what she was, someone who'd chew up her own men. For a moment. I believed him, so we moved together, sprinting low across the snow, counting Sutter's rhythm. 1, 2, shift. We came out firing. His bullet grazed. Mine struck home, and Sutter crumpled, blood painting the ridge. He tried to lift a remote, his last card, but my second shot shattered it in his hand. He fell, rolling into the shadows, gone for good. When it was over, the night smelled of gunpowder and pine, of diesel and cold iron. Marjorie lay dead on the bridge, her pearls scattered, her voice silenced. Her thugs were cuffed or running, her toys dismantled. Walker lived. Though shaking, Grace clung to me, with soot on her face and fire in her eyes. And even that scarred man, once my enemy, sat in the snow looking human again. And me? I stood in the middle of that bridge, chest heaving, wrists raw, but my head high, because the HOA president who thought she owned this land, who thought she could turn rules into weapons, was finished. Control had snapped, like her pearls scattering across the steel. And for the first time in months, I felt air in my lungs that wasn't poisoned by fear or fines. The lesson, in the end, cruelty dressed as authority will always collapse under its own weight. And that's what I'll remember. Here on HOA Drama Unfolded.